Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Zoomed In with Alexis. Today's guest is none other than Camille Devoney, another Amherst area originator who is now an actor living in LA. And I've actually known Cammy now for 24 years. Cammy, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, this is so exciting. Also, 24 years is so long.
Yeah, I really it somehow feels that long yet doesn't feel that long. I don't know how to exactly put that. But yeah, so today, thank you so much for coming again. Like it's so special to have, a coast to coast sort of situation. So I'm really glad that it worked out. But also, today we wanted to talk about friendships, of course, because being longtime friends, but also creativity, both of us being artists. And actually, I wanted to kind of just like jump right into that, if that's okay. So being an actor in LA, I feel like we have a lot of ideas about what that's like. So can you demystify a couple of things, or like can you like squash a couple of preconceived notions and stuff? So what is it really like? Can you tell us?
Yeah. I would say I am part of a like community of creatives who everybody is working at like different degrees of an intensity towards like building a career as an actor, or like I also obviously am around a lot of my friends are like screenwriters or directors or editors or whatever. And yeah, I think LA and I think actors in particular get a reputation for being like shallow and they just want to be famous and blah blah blah. But in my experience, it's a really there's like this really odd contrast between like at our core, we're all actually just creatives, and creatives tend to be kind of like sensitive, introspective people. And so it actually is a very, a lot of people really have a hard time with like the Hollywood aspect of it and the like business aspect of it, where it's like you have to market yourself. You have to like run your own business, and you have to figure out like, how do I show people that I'm a creative and this is my voice and this is how this is what I bring to your project or whatever. And I think some of the business side of it is what can seem a little bit shallow, because you're treating artists like products, and you're treating yourself like a product. But yeah, when really it's a bunch of really sensitive, thoughtful people who are just trying to like not have to spend their time doing another job so that they have money to do this creative thing that they want to do.
And I actually find that very interesting, that sort of, because not to get too like wooey or whatever, but like I always think back to like hundreds or thousands of years ago, where like artists were literally being paid to just do art.
Yeah.
And that there was value there, or rather there was a perceived value in paying artists to do the art. And so, and again, like, right, like it feels like a double-edged sword, because like you have to, like, in this capitalist sort of situation, you have to commodify yourself. You have to. And so I guess how then do you find work that feels good? Do you feel like you found that yet? And like, at what point do you look around and you're like, oh yeah, like I made it in LA?
Yeah.
Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think I'm sure anybody you ask would have a different answer to this, but for myself, I think because it's so hard to make a living as an actor, and honestly, it has gotten a lot harder in the past few years because of, this is very like industry, but like the TV bubble popped. So there's way less production happening, and way less production happening in LA. Like it has gotten even harder. But so because I kind of can't count on, there's no linear path to success with, I'll speak specifically to acting, because you can work and work and work and not get any work, or you could get a little sporadic, like, oop, I have a couple of jobs, a little bit of momentum, and then the momentum just dies for years or whatever. You know, you can't count on it. So the way that I guess I've settled things for myself in my mind is like, I just want to be, I love acting, and I just want to be acting, and I want to be collaborating and around other people who are creatives in like film and TV. So as long as I'm doing that in some capacity, that's the thing that's going to make me happy. And like, that's what I try to focus on. So like whether I get paid for it or not, like I honestly, I've been in, like acting classes and like private acting coaching since graduating college. And sometimes like that's the only acting I'm doing, or the auditions are the only acting I'm doing. There's like a saying that people will say like, the audition is the work is the perk. So like your job as an actor is to audition. And if, which, you know, isn't great because you don't get paid for your auditions, right. But your job as an actor is to audition. And then if you book a job and you get to actually go on set, like that's a bonus. But, you know, like I said, the money is not aligned that way.
Sure. And that's the crux of being an artist, right? And like so much of it is, like you were saying, is so intrinsically tied to like our being and our existence and like what we know. And yeah, that's why it's hard being an artist for many reasons. That's very interesting insight. Thank you. I definitely want to get into, so you're talking about, you know, acting coach and stuff like that. I'd love to get into the skill set that you feel like is necessary for someone. I mean, I guess you can only speak to LA because is that the only place you've acted, or have you acted in other places?
Yes, only LA.
Okay, so then I guess in terms of LA, what do you feel like folks need as a skill set in order to get started?
As an actor?
Yeah.
I would say definitely like you have to be in it for the art, the creativity. Like if you're going in to be famous, like go just do something else, especially with like social media, like just go be like an influencer. So I definitely think you need an interest in, I would say in LA, mostly film and TV. There is a theater scene in LA. It's just a little bit less, it's a little like decentralized almost. There's like a lot of smaller theaters. But so for film and TV, like if you're someone who is watching TV and watching movies and going like, oh, I wonder how they did that, or like you're thinking critically about it, like how interesting that like the characters started like this and then now they're behaving like this, like later on, like if you have some curiosity about like how that was crafted, that's going to help you, because a big part of acting is like analyzing storytelling structure and like character arc. Like, you know, your character starts this way and then they end up this way, and you do have to be able to make choices that will show that there's like a shift happening. And then the other skills that I think maybe people know more or like are more familiar with is just like being able to emote and being able to be vulnerable in front of a camera or an audience, because, you know, like a lot of people, you put them in front of an audience or you put them in front of a camera and they freeze up. And that's when you get like a really stiff actor, and you have to be able to just like let that go.
You know what I'm thinking about? Are you feeling any sort of way about how people look around you? Do you want to get work done?
Ooh, it does cross my mind. I would say mostly no. I have considered Botox.
Can I tell you why I asked? Yeah. Because of when you said they need to know how to emote.
Yeah.
And so much of what I see is exactly what you're stiff because of the work, or people are so filled that their faces aren't creasing right, or when people, you know, when I'm looking at a period piece and there's fillers all over the place. Yeah. So I'm sorry to cut you off. But continue with yours.
No, totally. I think ultimately I always talk myself out of the Botox because I'm like, I think my values are like, I want to be someone who can, who ages and people can be like, oh, like that's just what a woman her age looks like. You know, like I want to be able to be an example of like, this is what it looks like when you don't do anything, and that's fine and beautiful. But there are, like, in LA, there are plastic surgeons, or I don't know, the people who administer Botox, I assume they're plastic surgeons, but they will, dermatologists. There are people who specialize in doing that for actors, because I guess there are certain placements that you maybe would avoid or do less, and there's some places where you can do more, so your eyebrows will still move in a certain way or whatever. But yeah, you do see, like, even like great actors, sometimes it's just like, their forehead is not moving.
Yeah.
And then that affects what you think of their character, which might work for some characters, but it maybe is limiting. And the thing about people with filler too, like, I guess you're saying you still see people with filler in period pieces, but I think as an actor, you have to take into account that if you do get filler or something like that, if you do something that makes your face look particularly modern and like you've got some money, you're gonna be closing yourself off from some roles. Because even if you have tattoos, a makeup artist can cover tattoos. I guess if it's a lower budget project, like, they might not have the money to be like layering a ton of expensive makeup on you, but your face, like, the shape of things on your face is really hard to change. So you probably are just closing yourself out from certain roles, which maybe some people might be okay with.
Yeah.
Because it also, you are always going to need somebody, you are going to need people who look like they've had plastic surgery for certain roles. Like, you're not going to cast someone whose face looks very, very natural to play a role that just needs that, like, plastic feeling to it.
Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting. I would love to ask you about how you feel your creativity manifests. I guess I'll leave it at that. However you feel like that.
Yeah. I would say I'm kind of having on a little bit of a journey with that, like, kind of like reframing it for myself. But I would have always said that I feel more like an interpreter as an actor than I do a creator, because I tend to not feel like I'm, like, building something from the ground up compared to, like, a writer or something like that, where it's like they're starting with, like, there's nothing there and they're just, like, from scratch making something. Like, an actor gets a script to work with. So you have, to me, it's always felt like, I'm interpreting something that's already here and then layering on what I bring to it. I will say, like, the more that I've been learning about acting and the more that I've been, like, developing my skill set, there is more and more focus on that part where it's like what I bring. And sometimes, a lot of the time, actually, it is beneficial to bring something that isn't already in the script, like bring a backstory that, like, informs the character in a way that, like, maybe the writer didn't think about. And that's also, like, that's where you get, like, kind of the magic of collaboration, where it's like, the writer wrote this thing and you are fulfilling their vision of it, but you're also like, oh man, like, I wouldn't have thought that somebody could do this with it, which that makes it really cool.
For sure. And that almost makes me wonder, maybe you don't have an answer, and that's totally fine if you don't have an answer, but, like, have you ever watched something and been like, oh man, I wish I could have got that role?
Yeah. I unfortunately, I feel like that happens the most when I'm like, that casting was not right.
Yeah.
Or something happened with the directing or the actor where I'm like, why did they make that choice? I think it's especially obvious when it's like whatever happened in making the movie or the show, that, like, something happened where the character wasn't actually supporting the story in a way that like needed to happen. Like, I remember watching, maybe I won't, like, name the movie, but there was a movie I was watching where it's like there's a there's a strong villain. And I felt like the entire stakes of the movie required there to be, like, this really a lot of tension in the face-off between, like, the protagonist and the villain. And unfortunately, the protagonist just, like, I was like, I don't believe that she could ever rise to the level of this villain in her own way. So it was just like there was no tension. It was just like, oh, the villain's just running around messing things up, and the protagonist is, it feels like the protagonist is just sitting there watching. But I think that it was a casting issue because the actress they cast like was talented, but she didn't bring like the gravitas or like the edge or whatever they needed to like match the villain.
And
yeah.
And can I say, this is like what as someone who is not only a fan of movies and has acted for many years, but also makes films and stuff, there's nothing worse than watching how broad stroke palatable everything has become. It's like everything has to appeal to everyone. And so like, so none of these characters I feel like can be strong one way or another because we have to be able to, everyone in this entire world has to be able to relate to this one person. And so they can't have any strong convictions. Not only that, but like, I totally agree with you. And I see a lot of casting that it's not that this person is not talented. It's that you only casted this person because you thought it was going to drive ticket sales. And that's very unfortunate because we've had so many films that have been so huge and groundbreaking and all of that the basis was that you didn't know who these people were. And that's what I love is that I let me fall in love with somebody I've never seen before.
Yeah. I also think that thing about things being broad strokes, I think it's like the wrong way to go about getting people to connect because I think it's like if you watch a movie about someone whose life is completely different than yours, are you telling me you're never gonna you're not gonna relate to them? I think if you get really specific about who somebody is, first of all, it's more interesting. But also if you have somebody that's really specific but they're different than you, but they're having a breakdown, I'm gonna start crying when I'm watching that. Like you're connecting to the emotions. You're not necessarily connecting to the circumstances. You're connecting to how the circumstances make that person and you feel.
Yes.
And I will say as an actor too, like it's much harder to access the deeper emotions when you're not getting specific about who you are and what the circumstances are. If you're trying to just, the more general you are, the harder it is to like tap into your feelings.
Yes, absolutely. And that's making me think about like when I did acting, all of my cues informed how I was going to say my next line. And that's how I always remembered my lines was based off of my cues. Because my character was only moved to say something because of what that other character said. So wow, that's very interesting. Okay, so getting it back kind of into the way that it manifests. So do you feel then that because of the medium, you're less spontaneous in your creativity because you have to sort of build a world?
Yes, I and also as an actor, you have to kind of wait for someone to give you an opportunity to act because I can't, unless I'm gonna write something for myself and film it myself, which, with smartphones and social media and everything, like you can do. But it's like you need the source material. And my job isn't to, there are plenty of writer actors out there, but I'm not one of them. Like I like the acting. I don't want to do the writing. So like I am kind of like waiting for someone to give me an opportunity, which is why I'm like constantly in classes. Cause then at least I have someone holding me accountable, giving me scenes to do. And, so yeah, it is less spontaneous in that sense. And also just, I think my style, the way my brain works just like as a person too is like I'm much more analytical and much less I am just like a less spontaneous person.
And what's your sign again? Sagittarius.
Okay. Yeah, Sagittarius sun and rising, and then Aquarius moon.
That's crazy. Wow. Okay, I'm not smart enough to be able to get into that right now, but wow, that's very interesting. Okay, so what about improv?
I've done, so I took 2 levels of improv at UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, which is like Amy Poehler's school of improv.
But can we say for a second, there's still like when people talk about improv, they're like, oh, improv. Like, is that how everybody feels in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would say probably even a lot of the people that do improv, because I think the thing is improv, if we're talking about like improv comedy specifically, it's I will say this, and I have heard a lot of other people say this too, that like good improv is so good. It's so exciting because you're like watching people in the pocket and you're just like, it's so funny. I can't believe that they're just making this up right now. But anything below good improv, like even mid-level improv, is so painful. It's so painful because you're just watching people struggle and you're watching people like try to be funny, and that's really hard to watch when it's not funny. Yeah.
So for you,
so I did a couple levels of classes at UCB, and it is one of the hardest things I've ever done. Because it just
and is it always like sort of angled towards comedy?
Yeah, those schools, so there are like the schools that people really know that have like followings are UCB, and then there's Groundlings, and then there are a couple that closed down. I never remember which is which, but there was like Iowa West and Second City. I think Second City is still open. But they are always like angled at comedy, but they have different approaches. So like I've heard people say that UCB is more writer's brain. So their whole thing is like when you step into a scene, the first thing, you're kind of just setting up a general, like, this is my character, this is where I am, this is what we're doing. And the first thing that gets a laugh, you go, okay, then that's the game. And so the game is you try to keep whatever the weird thing was that made people laugh at that, keep doing a variation of that and like keep intensifying it, basically. I might be not explaining this well because it didn't really click for me, but they're very like, it's writer's brain. It's very like situational oriented. Like that's what you're supposed to be thinking about. I've heard that Groundlings is more character oriented. So the comedy comes from crafting a character and a voice or whatever, and then that character's already funny, and then you put that character in a situation.
Right. Okay. So the first one, tell me if I'm interpreting this wrong. So the first one is like, if I come in, I'm a Yanni the janitor, and then I'm sweeping in a funny way. If I sweep in funny, I gotta be sweeping that entire time. Sweep away.
Or you could find another thing to do, like maybe then you move on to like polishing, and it's like if you're sweeping with your shoulders shimmying like at first, then maybe you're polishing and like your foot starts going or something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first one, and then the second one is more so like, I'm Yanni the janitor who came here. I left my family behind.
Yeah.
I'm all alone.
Yeah. Like I think I mean, I feel like it's fully formed already. I think when you think of SNL, the like recurring characters that happen, I think that's kind of Groundlings, where it's like you'll almost like walk away from Groundlings with your set of characters that you have been like fine-tuned, and then maybe you can tweak them a little to do different versions of them that like fit whatever the project is.
Okay. So I almost want to think one is like body acting and one is like,
I would say, I mean, like the characters still get, I think, so Amy Poehler is UCB. I think Melissa McCarthy is Groundlings.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish I could think of more examples.
Okay. But I think I'm picking up what you're throwing down. That's very interesting. And so I guess to sort of like round this out, has there been anything a part of your process, first off, that has like, and let's like even include high school if you want to, or like any of your schooling that involved acting. Is there, what parts of it like turned you off from this process? And then also next to that, like what has kept you going beside, like we've heard that you love acting. Maybe that's enough. But like, are there other things that have kept you going?
Yeah. I think So the thing that keeps me going, I do think there's like a little bit of a selfish like element to it, because
you mean like vain?
There's definitely there's a little bit of well, yeah, I guess in the sense that like it's like validation, you know.
Sure.
Like I think I would say most actors probably, when you get down to the core of it, like they want a little validation.
Who doesn't want applause?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But I think there's also a part of me that I'm a really sensitive person. Like I have big feelings, and I think when I finally got to a point in like studying acting and like trying to figure out what my process is, when I finally got to a point where I felt like I was like accessing emotions, and I started getting feedback from other people like, wow, like you really like moved me in that scene or whatever, that there's something in me that's like, oh, so my like emotions are useful. Like it makes like this thing that's a big part of me feel valuable.
Yes.
And I'm a big I'm like easy to cry. Even just in life, like my threshold for tears is like very low, and that is something that I get feedback about a lot when if I do a scene that like requires like heavy emotion. People will be like, "Oh my God, you just really like I can't believe you were doing all that." Like I was crying, and I'm like, "Okay, thank you."
You're like, I was holding that in from yesterday.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's very interesting because I actually don't think I mean, this is totally irrelevant, but like I don't think I've ever seen you just cry.
Yeah, I don't think you have. And I would say a lot of people in my life actually probably haven't, because it feels so vulnerable that I think it's like I do the like overcompensating where I'm just like, you're not going to see any emotions from me because I don't. But you know, like as I've done like therapy and I've just like had more life experience, I definitely have gotten more comfortable with just, you know, letting it out if it needs to come out.
Okay, that's good. And I mean, that was like a really good note to end on. So I almost don't want to ask you what has been turning you off from it, but I'm still very curious.
Yeah, I think the thing that, well, I mean, like I'm still in it, so I wouldn't say I've been turned off, but the thing that's the hardest for me is the business side of it, is like the self-promotion, because I feel very motivated to do the artistic stuff, but it's the business side is a completely different skill set. And first of all, they don't it's like a known thing amongst actors that like people don't teach you about the business. There have been more and more resources that have been like coming up, but like I went through my whole theater degree, and there was one class that was an elective that really was just this one professor being like, they gotta know this. They're gonna go out in the world. They have to know like you need headshots and what is the purpose of headshots and like what's the difference between an agent and a manager, and like why do you need to know what your casting is? How do you figure out what your casting is?
Have a lot of these things stayed the same since you were in school, or has it changed drastically?
That's a good question. The fundamentals are the same. I think like there are like trends in headshots, I guess, but some people say that doesn't even matter. But I guess it is possible to be like, hey, your headshot looks outdated, even if it was taken last year, you know? Yeah. But for the most part, yeah, because it's really what they're talking about is marketing.
Right.
So you're having to learn how to like step outside of yourself and see yourself from like a third
perspective.
Yeah. And go like, if I boil myself down to something that's very simplistic and also is like maybe it's the impression that people get right away. It's when you walk into a room, what do people see in you? Because I'm a sensitive person, but when I walk into a room, people, a lot of time, I've had people tell me they think I'm like really cold because I'm guarded. So like that's the first thing they'll see. They're not going to see that I'm sensitive. And so I have to know that about myself.
Oh my God. Like now that I'm thinking about it, like I can see myself like over analyzing even how I walk into the room. And so hey guys, like,
yeah, it's
oh
can totally be a mind game. And then you get people who are like, don't like their casting, so they're trying to be something else, or they're like, you know, you can try to like manipulate your casting with a different haircut or like different color hair, different type of clothes, wwhatever. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot.
Oh my God. Wow. And you're just out here in the rat race.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you have to, the thing that I'm not motivated, I think the marketing is interesting, but the thing that I'm not motivated to do is promote myself.
Yeah.
So to just be like, even like I have a manager, I need to get an agent. Like, I don't want to send a bunch of cold emails to agents being like, do you like me? Do you think I'm interesting? Would you like to help me get jobs? Like, that's terrible.
That does feel pretty desperate. Well, and maybe desperate times call for desperate times in America here. Okay, before we run out of time, because we literally only have 10 minutes to talk about friendships, which feels like a very big topic to whittle down to 10 minutes. But I guess I want to ask you about, so for viewers, we come from I'm not going to call it a clique. It's a friend group from high school, long-standing. Obviously, as you heard, I've known Camille for 24 years. That's a long time. Like, that's like a quarter of a century. That's a really long time. And we are part, or we were, or we are a part of a friend group. I don't even know what to call it anymore. And of course, over a span of almost 30 years, some hardships, some conflicts arise. And I think that's something that I wonder is, so for example, right? Maybe I wondered myself if I'm approaching friendship differently than other folks. And here's why. I'm someone with absolutely no siblings and almost no cousins around me.
Yeah.
And so in many of my close friendships, I'm looking for a sister. I'm looking to create family.
Yeah.
And in my friend group, every single person already has a sister. You have two sisters. And so I realized after our breakup, folks, me and Camille broke up.
We didn't talk for like almost 10 years.
So I think it was 6 years.
Oh, that's it?
I think it was 6 years.
It felt like 10 years.
It was a long time. It felt like a really long time because it happened in 2015. So from 15 to 23, that's 8 years.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, that's
God.
a long time.
That is a long time. You're right. I skimmed off 2 years. So anyways, all of that to say, after our breakup, I wondered if I was viewing the group dynamic as something different than what everybody else was viewing it. And so that made me realize, like, oh, my expectations were this. Their expectations might have been this. And I'm curious to know if you're willing to share, like, what are the things that you, with your best friend right now, what do you feel like is stuff that you ask of the relationship, or is something that sort of just comes with like the burden of a relationship? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what do you feel like is something that's like, that's actually not something that I would do. That's something that I would turn to my sisters for, or turn to my family for.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I didn't consider until recently somebody said to me that, because my sisters live in LA also. So I can see them whenever I want. I also can like text them whenever I want. And somebody recently said to me, like, yeah, I think you approach friendship differently because than this other person does, because like you have your sisters there. Like you can always just default to them. I honestly never thought about that before, but I think it's probably true. I would say who I call my best friend now is our mutual friend. And so that's a friendship that's been, I really only technically had known her. Actually, technically, I've known her a little bit less time than I've known you, but it really is about the same.
Yeah.
There's just some,
Well, but we weren't close,
right?
When we first knew each other, anyway. So, anyways.
Yeah. And I think that relationship works because we're like very similar people. Like we have a lot of similar interests and similar like ways of being. Like we both are like quiet time. Like we can just kind of like sit on the couch and do nothing. Yeah. And also like we both love canceled plans. Like, you know, yeah. And I wouldn't say I have a best friend in LA. I have a very tight knit friend group. But I honestly feel like I'm maybe like one of the less close people in that that group. So I have friends that I'm close with, but I don't have somebody that is like my go-to, like I'm going to text them about something if it happens. I guess that would be probably my sisters. And I think because also of my personality is very much like the way my brain works, I need a lot of alone time. I've realized over the years, I need a lot of alone time. I don't like to hang out as often as other people seem to like to hang out. I do a lot of like saying no to people of like, no, I don't want to go out. I don't want to go hang out with you. I don't want to, you know, and like, thankfully the people that I'm friends with now, like understand that that's just me. It's not me trying to like taper off the friendship or something. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of my friendships work and they last a long time when there is some sort of like distance. There's some space allowed between us.
Okay. So I guess all this to say, like, are your sisters your best friends?
I wouldn't call them that. I think I would just say our mutual friend who lives in Massachusetts is my best friend. And I would have a hard time naming somebody else.
Right. So are there things that you feel like you don't like would sort of like be outside of the realm of the friendship that like you couldn't ask of her, or like you wouldn't ask of her, or like would feel some sort of way if she asked you of that? That of you. Sorry, my English.
I think I have kind of two answers, because I think there's like the intellectual side and the emotional side. I think intellectually, I'm like, I could ask her any favor, and I also would trust her to say no if she needed to. And I could share any like emotion with her, or like tough. This is gonna make me cry a little bit. I could share like a tough experience with her, and I have. And I would expect her to like do the same thing with me. So that's intellectually, but emotionally, I do definitely have a little bit of a block of like, oh no, this is just something I handle on my own. Like this is a thing I should be independent about, or like this is like a burden I don't want to put on her. So I definitely like, that's something I'm kind of like working on for myself, is like push, get the emotional instinct closer to the intellectual one. Like, yeah, just talk to your friend, you know, like just ask your friend to do this thing with you. Yeah.
But so then my next question is, okay, we got 5 minutes. My next question is, and I would be surprised if you even ever had a conflict, but like if you guys did have a conflict, how do you feel like you would go, like let's say like she does a transgression against you. How do you feel like now at this moment you are communicating that to her?
Yeah, I don't feel like that comes up there. To be honest, apparently there was a time where we kind of weren't friends, but I didn't really know. Because it was like late high school, early college, apparently, or like all the way through college, maybe. And I think from her point of view, like we weren't really friends because she was like very upset with me or something. And I kind of have she has given me some like clarity on this since then. But at the time I was like, oh, that's just how she is. Like she just teases me. Like, because we didn't stop hanging out. We still were like talking because there was a group dynamic, but it was a little bit like she just teased me all the time.
Wow. No, now that you're saying that, I like things are coming back, because now that I'm thinking about it, I think that sort of like water, I think that the closeness of folks ebbed and flowed? Because I think at one point you and I were very close.
We're closer, but at some point you and she were closer, and then
then you guys and me and so anyways, all of that to say it's very interesting, and I wonder to you, is there any downside, you think, to having this group that feels so, and then once there's a fracture, the entire group, how do you, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's a downside. I think there's a little bit of awkwardness maybe, because like when you and I weren't talking, I did feel like I had to be aware, and I guess you've experienced this a couple times now, where like I did feel like I had to be aware of like just the boundaries, like, well, first of all, that like I might want to hang out and like maybe they have plans with you, and so like that's not a thing that I'm gonna be joining in on,
right?
But also just like I didn't know sometimes when it was appropriate for me to like ask about your life, or like for them to tell me something that was going on in your life. And I think they didn't always know like what was okay to tell me. So there was awkwardness, but there almost also was like a comfort in like, I was like, Alexis isn't like gone, because like she's still tied to me through these other people. So there was kind of like a hope that like we would be able to to reconnect. And
Cammy,
I know.
Stop. She's trying to get me all emotional with her acting, guys.
No, it's real. This is the thing. This is how easy it is for me to cry.
Somebody hire her fast.
I know. Yeah, there was like a hope that like, oh, you know, like she's still there. Like I kind of liked that you were still always present, and that if something really important did happen in your life, I would find out about it.
So as my very last question, so do you feel like, because I've thought about this and I don't have an answer, is like I've thought about how awkward it must have been for everybody else.
Yeah.
And like even with my recent conflict, I felt like I needed to tell Vicky something.
Yeah.
I didn't go into details because I'm not interested in turning anybody against somebody. But I'm like, here's a reason why you're probably not going to see this person around me.
Yeah.
And so I did feel like they, you know, deserved some sort of information. But do you feel like the group has any sort of, I think responsibility is the wrong word, but do you think that the group should have had any involvement in trying to resolve something or to squash a beef?
That's interesting. I guess,
because like I'm still thinking of like within the group there's like boundaries between each person, but then there's the boundaries around the and so it's like,
yeah, I think maybe, well, I guess like when you and I weren't talking, I think there was a part of me that was like, somebody push for me, you know, like somebody try to help us like get back together, you know. But I don't think that's their responsibility. I think it is like you and I needed to be responsible for our own relationship. But I guess I do think that friends have a responsibility to like tell each other when they're doing something they might like regret, or when they're doing something that is maybe disrespectful. So like if there was like if one of our mutual friends had come to me and said like, Cammy, I think actually you crossed the line doing XYZ, like you should take accountability for that, or like don't do it, don't keep doing it, or apologize or whatever. Or if they had gone to you and said like, hey, I think what you did actually was not okay, or it's not who you are, like you won't be proud of this in a couple years or whatever, like I think that's something that a friend can say. And like, you know, they can't change you. You're responsible
No.
for your own. But I think,
Yeah.
you know, in the same way that you would like, you know, if your friend starts dating someone and you're like, what are you doing? This person is
Yeah.
obviously trash. Like your friend should say
Yeah.
something at least once, you know?
Yeah. And I think that a downside was that we had never as a group encountered a conflict before.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I think that we were so brutally unprepared to be able to hold.
And we were like at an age where like I didn't know how to communicate. I was bad at conflict anyways. Like and
I was in crisis. I wasn't in a place to be able to have I don't even know, like a difficult conversation.
You had enough on your plate.
I had a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what in retrospect, because at the time I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then in retrospect, I'm like, I could have been more sensitive to everything that was going on in her life.
well, and I think that I definitely, like, I was obviously operating from a place of hurt. And I think that it takes like stepping back from that and being like, oh my God, like that was really crazy and that probably could have been handled way differently. So, you know, retrospect is, you know, a blessing and being able to grow from stuff. And so, all of this to say, I guess the lesson here in this about friendship, I don't know if I have a lesson about acting, though thank you for sharing your insights. I feel like the lesson is like more communication is always better than less. And that I think it never has to be something where it's like, it's never a gang up. It's more of like, let's call people in. Let's hold each other. Let's, you know, if I care about you, I'm going to check in on you. If you're looking like how I was in 2015, your girl needed some help. But anyway, so thank you. I don't know if you wanted to like add any sort of like where people can find you on social media or anything like, or where they can watch your acting.
I would just direct them to my Instagram, which is Camille Devoney. That's my handle. It's CamilleDevoney.
Thank you so much for talking with me
this
today,
was really
Cammy. I'm so glad that we made it work. And thank you all for joining me for another episode of Zoomed In. Until next time.